Welcome to Audit the Audit, where we sort out the who and what and the right and wrong of police interactions. This episode covers de facto arrests, the right to film, and Terry stops, and is brought to us by Rago Monkey's channel. Be sure to check out the description below and give them the credit that they deserve. On November 4th, 2022, auditors Rafael Antonio Gomez Osorio, who is also known as Rago Monkey, and Joey Surreal Camera began to film Officer Heredia Rubio of the Miami Police in Miami, Florida, as they walked by his stopped cruiser.
You're blocking traffic, sir.
Bro. I'm doing my job.
Okay. We didn't say nothing to
Now,
you.
pero since you're here,
We didn't say anything.
okay, no importa, pero now I'm saying it to you. Since you're here, I want to see both of you IDs.
What?
What? Is this a joke? No, it's not. Do I look like I'm playing?
Can you call your sergeant?
Both of you IDs.
I don't have ID.
I need ID.
I don't have ID.
No, yeah, I'm gonna call my sergeant when I finish getting your ID.
I don't have
Okay,
ID.
so put your hands in there.
Is this a lawful order?
It is.
How is it lawful?
Because I'm
You
giving it to
know,
you.
listen,
Okay. So let's talk about late. Put your hands
No,
behind your back.
listen, you're being
Put your
recorded.
hands behind your back.
I'm not resisting. I'm not resisting.
Your hands behind your
I'm
back.
not resisting.
What are you doing?
What are you doing, bro?
Put your hands behind your back. Come here.
I don't have ID.
I have a set of handcuffs for you.
I don't
too.
have ID. For what? What are you handcuffing him for?
Wait, call your sergeant. Call your sergeant.
I will.
What's the crime?
I will.
Relax.
What's the crime? What are you
What's the
doing?
crime? What
will.
crime did I commit? Can you tell me? What crime did I commit? Relax.
Don't worry about it. Come over here, Baba. Stay right there.
What are you doing?
Stay right there.
What's your name and badge number? Don't break my. What are you doing? Breaking my arm.
Yo, what are you doing, bro?
Let me tell you something, bro. Statute code 901, that's 151, brother. What crime did we commit? You know the statute 901, that's 151?
Okay, let's continue listening. Come over here. Have a seat. You sit on top of him.
No.
Yes.
Okay, I have a question. Why did you throw us in the back seat?
Because no los iba a tener en medio de la calle por gusto ahí.
Fucking in the
Papi,
sidewalk,
dame
you called us
en
to
la
the car,
acera.
bro.
Sí, pero you guys were handcuffs for my safety. No los iba a tener
Okay.
ahí para que
Safety,
fueran,
bro, but
para que
listen,
fueran
in
un
the car
espectáculo.
that you
No,
pulled
vamos,
over,
this is
okay,
very,
papi.
it's very simple. It's very simple. It's very simple. Okay, all kidding aside. The one who dictates how I do my job is me, not you.
I didn't dictate nothing.
Okay,
I
so
was
why
filming the
did I
interaction that
put
the
why
car
did I
had.
put you in the back of my car? Why did I put you in the back of my car? Because I wanted to. Thank you.
Wanted to? Can you
Goodbye.
repeat that, bro?
Why did you let us
Because
go?
I
Paying me for what?
Because I wanted to.
Why did you let us go?
I wanted to.
Officer Heredia Rubio claims that he handcuffed the auditors and detained them in the back of his vehicle for 30 minutes simply because he, quote, wanted to. As we will discuss later in this episode, it is clear that Officer Heredia Rubio did not have the reasonable suspicion necessary to legally detain the auditors on the street, let alone in handcuffs in the back of a police cruiser. However, even if he did have reasonable suspicion to detain them, a court would likely conclude that Officer Heredia Rubio violated the Fourth Amendment by handcuffing the auditors and ordering them to sit in the backseat of the cruiser for 30 minutes. While the use of handcuffs or placing someone in the back of a police cruiser does not automatically transform a Terry stop detention, which only requires reasonable suspicion of a crime, into an arrest that requires probable cause, courts have consistently held that when a detention is sufficiently intrusive, it can become a so-called de facto arrest, even if the officer did not intend to arrest the individual or officially place them under arrest. In the 2007 case of U.S. versus Williams, the 11th Circuit Court of Appeals, which has jurisdiction over Florida, explained that, quote, to determine whether a stop became an arrest, we apply 4 non-exclusive factors: the law enforcement purposes served by the detention, the diligence with which the police pursued the investigation, the scope and intrusiveness of the detention, and the duration of the detention. Likewise, in the 2004 case of U.S. versus Acosta, the 11th Circuit determined that, quote, under the third factor, we ask whether the scope and intrusiveness of the detention exceeded the amount reasonably needed by police to ensure their personal safety. Because, quote, officers may take reasonable steps to ensure their safety so long as they possess an articulable and objectively reasonable belief that the suspect is potentially dangerous. Similarly, in the 1992 case of Reynolds versus State, the Supreme Court of Florida held that, quote, police may properly handcuff a person whom they are temporarily detaining when circumstances reasonably justify the use of such restraint. Whether such action is appropriate depends on whether it is a reasonable response to the demands of the situation. Relying on this decision, the 4th District Court of Appeal of Florida determined in the 2016 case of Quasi versus State that the use of handcuffs during a Terry stop was illegal when, quote, the defendant gave the officer no reason to suspect he would flee and no reason to suspect he was armed or dangerous. In this situation, even if reasonable suspicion to detain the auditors existed, nothing the auditors did gave any indication that they intended to harm Officer Heredia Rubio or that they intended to flee. And Officer Heredia Rubio even admitted that he handcuffed the auditors and forced them in the cruiser because he wanted to, not because he had any concerns about his safety or potential flight.
Pablo, a esperar ahí en el quesito.
Why did you let us go?
Because I have nothing to hold for.
So you're telling us we can't stand here? We can't stand here?
Stand there.
All right, guys. So no, we're good, bro. All right, guys. So this is what you get. Miami's finest. What happened? If he's coming, we'll wait. But if he's not, if he, well, you know, you can.
I don't know when he's coming. I
you
requested it in front of
you
you.
can tell him to leave. That's cool. All right, guys. This is what you get. Miami's finest.
Walking right here and just filming this like this. And he called us to the car. We went to go see what he wanted, and he asking us for ID.
All right, guys, we got released. We're here on 47th Avenue, the Miami Police Department. This officer went crazy. He released us. He looked up the statutes. He couldn't find anything to arrest us for.
The auditors claim that Officer Heredia Rubio demanded that they identify themselves because they were filming him as they walked by on a public street. Under Section 901.15 of the Florida statutes, which the auditors cite several times throughout the interaction, quote, whenever any law enforcement officer of this state encounters any person under circumstances which reasonably indicate that such person has committed, is committing, or is about to commit a violation of the criminal laws of this state or the criminal ordinances of any municipality or county, the officer may temporarily detain such person for the purpose of ascertaining the identity of the person temporarily detained and the circumstances surrounding the person's presence abroad which led the officer to believe that the person had committed, was committing, or was about to commit a criminal offense. If Officer Heredia Rubio actually suspected the auditors of criminal activity, it is unclear what offense he believed they had potentially committed, as the 11th Circuit has recognized the right to film police officers in public for more than 20 years. In the 2000 case of Smith versus City of Cumming, the 11th Circuit Court of Appeals recognized, quote, a First Amendment right, subject to reasonable time, manner, and place restrictions, to photograph or videotape police conduct, and held that, quote, the First Amendment protects the right to gather information about what public officials do on public property, and specifically a right to record matters of public interest. Relying in part on this case, the 11th Circuit confirmed in the 2019 case of Toole versus City of Atlanta that, quote, 11th Circuit precedent holds that individuals have a First Amendment right, subject to reasonable time, manner, and place restrictions, to photograph or videotape police conduct, as well as to engage in lawful protests. The court also noted that, quote, law enforcement officers may not arrest an individual as a way to thwart or intrude upon First Amendment rights otherwise being validly asserted, and that, quote, law enforcement officers cannot punish or retaliate against individuals for expressing their First Amendment rights, and ultimately concluded that an officer was not entitled to qualified immunity where he allegedly unlawfully arrested an individual for filming police activities without arguable probable cause in order to stop him from filming. Given the 11th Circuit's history of granting strong protections to the First Amendment right to film officers in public, it is highly likely that a court would determine that Officer Heredia Rubio did not have the authority to order the auditors to identify themselves for exercising this right.
He had to let us go. Bro, he looked for every law to charge us with.
For every law to charge us.
They're coming, wait, they're coming. No se vayan.
You broke my phone.
Tú le dices how
Bro,
bad I
he
was.
broke his phone, bro. He broke Ragamuffin's phone, dog, as he was detaining him and putting him in handcuffs, dog. I was already cuffed right here in a matter of 20 seconds.
I broke his phone. Oh my God, I broke his phone.
We didn't come try you guys like that, bro. But you guys look for the hate. You guys earned the hate. You look for the hate.
Do you hate me?
I hate you because you're a bad cop, bro.
Okay.
You're a bad piece of that's what you are.
You want me to cry? You want me to cry?
Bobby, you look like
gonna get you in trouble, bro.
Really?
Okay, bro. You think that we don't play around, dog.
You saw I
play
don't
around with that badge.
You
bro.
saw
play
it.
around with it.
You
too
saw I
much,
don't
dog.
play either.
You don't deserve to have that fucking.
You don't have your lights on, man. You don't look. You got a car behind you. Put your emergency lights, man. I'm professional, guys, man. What's going on, Sarge?
How can I help you guys?
LT, we got a huge problem with this officer right here. Yeah, we need to file a complaint on this gentleman.
Why don't you tell me what happened, man?
Okay, we were walking by like this. Look. We get here, he calls us to the car.
Why don't you stand over here where I can hear you, man?
Just letting you know what's going on. Just because I need both of your IDs right now. For what crime did we commit? But we're not ID for what? Get out the car and Seguida puts me in handcuffs, goes me back of the car along with this guy. Just because he wanted our information, dude.
Can I ask you a question, man? When he asked for your ID, did you give it to him?
I don't have to.
No, we
Joey's have to give your ID.
No, that's not the law.
Statute 901-151, unless I commit a crime about to or had. You know what else?
But you don't know if he thinks you committed a crime, right?
For walking in the
He
sidewalk?
couldn't
Listen
come
to me
up with
for a
nothing.
second,
He
guys.
couldn't come up with
Let me talk for a
anything.
second. You don't know if they just put out a bolo right now for a guy wearing all black. You don't know, right? Do you know? I'm just asking. And I don't know if that's what happened. But the problem is you guys got to look at things from our perspective, okay? When something happens and an officer asks you for ID, you can't be like, you don't got no reason. That's why you guys got to do what you're told until you... No, listen to me. I'm telling you. This is how it works. This is 100% how it works.
Yeah, that's why we're out here.
Because
So
when
we're out here, we're not going to jail, right?
anytime an officer is conducting an investigation, you got to do what you're told,
What
my friend.
investigation? Who's sitting on the road?
You are not the person that decides that.
Officer, you don't know the law. You're just talking. You're
You guys
talking
don't
out of
look
your...
police
We're
stuff.
looking at it by the law, bro.
The law, sir, the law. 901.151.
And add me to your complaint.
Read me a
My name is
statute.
Lieutenant Carpenter. My badge
Lieutenant,
number is
you're a lieutenant,
0867.
and you're
Yeah,
talking.
you needs to
Yeah,
be
in front
of the
fired.
camera?
Exactly, because
Yo,
I know
what
what
a
I'm talking
shame.
about.
You have no idea what you're talking
You have
about.
no
All
idea
you
what
know
you're
is the
talking about.
boot.
Take that to court
You
and
want
see
the
who
internal
wins.
affairs?
Lieutenant Carpenter claims that individuals must, quote, do as they're told whenever officers are conducting investigations, including identifying themselves, because they do not know everything that the officer knows. There is some validity to the argument that citizens may not always know why they are being legally detained, as courts will assess whether reasonable suspicion exists from the viewpoint of the officer. For instance, in the infamous 1968 case of Terry versus Ohio, the Supreme Court explained that when determining if reasonable suspicion to support a detention exists, courts must judge the facts against an objective standard and ask, quote, would the facts available to the officer at the moment of the seizure or the search warrant a man of reasonable caution in the belief that the action taken was appropriate? Likewise, the 11th Circuit Court of Appeals held in the 1996 case of United States versus Michael that, quote, reasonable suspicion is determined from the totality of the circumstances and from the collective knowledge of the officers involved in the stop. Because officers are generally not legally obligated to inform detainees of the reason they are being investigated, it is certainly possible that, as Lieutenant Carpenter suggests, in some instances an individual could think that they were being wrongfully detained when an officer actually has the reasonable suspicion necessary to detain and identify them, such as when they match the description of a suspect reported in the area. However, it certainly does not follow that individuals must surrender their rights and always blindly follow police orders to identify themselves due to this possibility, particularly in situations like this one where Officer Heredia Rubio made it abundantly and unequivocally clear that he was demanding that the auditors identify themselves because they were filming him.
Yeah. All right, sir.
So you're gonna take our complaint?
You tell me I don't know what I'm talking about. Then add me to your complaint and go to internal affairs.
Bro, you're a waste.
Have a
You're
nice day, sir. That's why you get into trouble.
fake Danny DeVito. Sir, we have First Amendment protected activity.
First Amendment, free
You
press,
guys
bro.
need to look that up. We gotta go to a call. Have a nice day, all right?
Go do some real work.
After the interaction in this video, the auditors immediately went to the Miami PD's office to quote-unquote peacefully protest and file a complaint. The video shows the auditors speaking to several officers, obtaining complaint forms, and then stating that they changed their minds and wanted to give their complaint in person. However, due to the editing of the video, it is unclear whether the auditors filed an official complaint in person and unknown if they submitted the complaint form at a later date. It's also unknown whether the auditors intend to pursue legal action against the Miami PD or any of the officers involved. Overall, Officer Heredia Rubio gets an F for illegally detaining the auditors for engaging in protected First Amendment activity, employing unreasonable and unnecessary restraint by placing the auditors in handcuffs in the back of his cruiser and holding the auditors for 30 minutes while he attempted to find a reason to charge them with a crime. It is clear from the interaction that Officer Heredia Rubio was attempting to retaliate against the auditors for exercising their First Amendment rights by recording him and expressing their disapproval of his actions by ordering them to identify themselves, handcuffing them, and detaining them in the back of the cruiser. At one point, Officer Heredia Rubio even ordered one auditor to sit on top of the other auditor in the back of the cruiser. And although it is unclear from the footage whether this actually occurred, the only possible purpose that such an order could serve would be to punish the auditors. This encounter is a clear example of how officers can blatantly abuse their authority when citizens injure their egos without violating the law, and how such behavior serves to further alienate officers from the communities they're supposed to serve and protect. Lieutenant Carpenter gets a C-, because although he was correct in his assertion that reasonable suspicion is determined from the officer's perspective, not the detainees, he blindly supported Officer Heredia Rubio's clearly unconstitutional behavior without taking the time to learn the real story, and demonstrated a dangerous and misinformed view regarding the extent of police authority. Personally, I find Lieutenant Carpenter's assertion that individuals must always, quote, do as they are told during interactions with the police to be terrifying, and it's even more concerning that an officer with such a clear lack of respect for individual rights is in a position of authority at the Miami PD. Additionally, Lieutenant Carpenter's response is particularly alarming given the fact that Officer Heredia Rubio's actions constituted such a blatant violation of the auditor's constitutional rights. This is yet another example of a commanding officer blindly backing the conduct of their supervisees without even considering that the officer could be in the wrong. The auditors get an A for understanding and exercising their First Amendment rights, knowing and citing Florida's Stop and Identify law, refusing to identify themselves when they were not legally obligated to do so, and quickly taking action to file a complaint against Officer Heredia Rubio and Lieutenant Carpenter. Although I cannot say for certain whether the auditors officially filed a complaint, I commend them for immediately going to the police station to report the violation of their rights, and I would encourage them to continue to pursue their complaints and consider taking legal action against the officers involved in this incident. Let us know if there is an interaction or legal topic you would like us to discuss in the comments below. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to check out my second channel for even more police interaction content.